Michael Saylor, the CEO of Microstrategy, one of the longest standing CEOs of a publicly traded company, announced that Microstrategy has purchased an additional 5,050 Bitcoin for approximately $242.9 million in cash at an average price of $48,099 per Bitcoin. And as of September 12th, they hold approximately 114,042 Bitcoins, which they acquired for just over $3 billion at an average price of $27,713 per Bitcoin. So Michael Saylor has purchased another 5,000 Bitcoin. He spent about 243 million bucks. They now hold over 114,000. They spent 3.16 billion on it. Average purchase price $27,000. Absolutely incredible. We are watching the single greatest public market trade of our lifetime. Either this will work out incredibly well and MicroStrategy will likely become one of the most valuable companies in the world, or it will all evaporate into thin air and everyone who is a critic will say, "We told you so." Guess what? I think it's going to work. So we'll see what happens here. This is a quintessential speculative attack. What does that mean? A speculative attack, which was made famous by Pierre Rochard. Basically, the idea is you go and you borrow a depreciating asset, cash, and you take that depreciating asset of fiat cash and you use it to buy sound money, which is Bitcoin. And then what you are essentially doing is you're borrowing with a cost of capital somewhere in the ballpark. He's borrowed at 0.75%, he's borrowed at 0, and he's borrowed at 6 or 7% as well. This does not look like it was borrowed capital. This is balance sheet capital that they're using here, I believe, in order to go ahead and make this purchase. So you're using balance sheet, plus you're using the debt, and you're continually to acquire Bitcoin. As far as I know, publicly, you've got the Winklevoss twins who own 210,000 Bitcoin. Right now, MicroStrategy has 114,000 Bitcoin. Do we think that Michael Saylor will be able to buy enough Bitcoin to eventually eclipse what the Winklevoss twins had? I don't know, but that's an interesting thing to watch. 210,000 versus the 114,000 he owns today. Now remember, Michael Saylor, as he's continued to spend $3+ billion to buy Bitcoin, has become somewhat of an expert or a luminary to other public company CEOs. He held a conference earlier this year for CEOs and CFOs of large publicly traded companies and said, if you would like to learn about how we did it, if you'd like to see the playbook, we will go ahead and open source that. We will show you how we did this. One of the people who has talked to Michael Saylor and decided to go ahead and buy Bitcoin was Elon Musk. And if you go back to December of last year, there was this now infamous or famous exchange between Elon and Michael Saylor. Elon said, "Are such large transactions even possible?" Talking about buying a significant portion of the Tesla balance sheet in Bitcoin. And Michael Saylor said, "Yes, I've purchased over 1.3 billion in Bitcoin in past months and would be happy to share my playbook with you offline." From one rocket scientist to another. Pretty damn cool. Now, as we look at this, Elon Musk obviously went out. He spent about $1.5 billion on Bitcoin, and he bought it somewhere in the $33,000 to $35,000 range. Michael Saylor obviously has bought at $10,000, $11,000. He's bought at almost $50,000. The guy just keeps buying. Absolute savage. And so at the time in December, he'd spent $1.3 billion. Now he has spent over $3 billion. So more than doubled his position this year in Bitcoin. We've got this chart that came from Willy Woo, legend in on-chain analytics, that shows the Bitcoin held by public companies. And if we kind of zoom in here a little bit, what you can see is that the Bitcoin held by all corporates continues to go up. A big portion of that, obviously, is MicroStrategy. There you can see they are by far the big leader. And then you've also got Tesla, Galaxy Digital, shout out to Mike Novogratz, and Square, Jack Dorsey doing a great job as well. And so as we continue to see not only the existing players like MicroStrategy, Tesla, Galaxy Digital, Square, and others, including the Bitcoin miners that are publicly traded, we continue to also see new entrants doing this. And so all corporates continue to go up, which is pretty incredible. Now, the last thing that I will say about this is Eric Weiss, who many of you may not know. Eric is Michael Saylor's friend. They've been friends for a long time. Eric is actually probably the number one person who had an impact on getting Michael Saylor to go from somewhat of a critic of Bitcoin in the early 2010s to eventually seeing the potential and going ahead and starting to make this purchase. And so Eric tweeted today, he said 400 days ago, MicroStrategy owned 0 Bitcoin. They've effectively purchased 11.8 Bitcoin per hour. That's 1 Bitcoin every 5 minutes for the last 400 days. Absolutely incredible when you start to actually look at the data around this and understand how quickly they've been able to build this position and how significant the position is today, over $3 billion of cash in. And if you go ahead and you look at what the value of 114,000 Bitcoin is today, a lot more than $3 billion. Joe, John, what do we think about this?
I mean, he's a certified legend. Like, it's absurd at this point. That tweet right there is a perfect example, right? 400 days ago, he didn't own any. And the one thing I always think back to is like, the greatest strength I think that he did was when everyone else was kind of counting it out. We saw it appreciate in value a ton from 2017 in that bull market and then come crashing back down. And he missed the entire thing, right? He didn't own any Bitcoin. And for the last 400 days, he basically has implemented a strategy to acquire as much as he possibly could. His cost basis is higher now than it ever was during that bull run of 2017. Obviously, the price has appreciated, so he's done exceptionally well from there. But look, at the end of the day, he has turned a $500 million company into a $6 billion company. So that's obviously impressive. And he set himself up to make one of the single greatest bets of all time if this plays out the way that he believes it will. So we'll see kind of at the end of the day where this goes price-wise. But when it comes down to his concentrated bet, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone make this much of a concentrated bet this quickly and have this much belief in a single asset.
John, what do you think?
Facts. He's a gangster for sure. He is. I also just realized that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy, same initials, company and name, which is pretty cool. MS, just saying. But no, I think first of all, he has an average price of around $28,000 of coin as he continues to acquire thousands and thousands of coins at a 40,000 plus, which speaks to how he's kind of spread it out over time. I'm curious, is his end game just to like make money on this? Because I don't see him doing anything or a lot of things, at least publicly, with the infrastructure part of Bitcoin. It seems like he's just kind of holding it, putting it on his balance sheet and waiting for the price to go up and probably he will never sell it.
I mean, I believe, I don't want to speak for Michael himself, but my understanding is that
it's like a money play.
No, that he believes that he will never sell the Bitcoin back into dollars, that he will hold the Bitcoin, and that will end up being very, very important. That's why I say that MicroStrategy, if you look today and you said to me, pick a company that is nowhere near the most valuable company in the world, but I think has a chance to get there, MicroStrategy is probably that company. I mean, if you go ahead and you look at the MicroStrategy stock, if I just pull up real quick, today they are a 5.9, almost $6 billion company. And if we look year to date, their stock price was at $425 at the beginning of the year. Today it's at $600. If you go all the way back a year ago, in September it was $159, right? So call it $150. And what you've watched is their stock 400% increase. At one point it was as high as over $1,000. So it was $1,200.
If Bitcoin hits $1 million, he has about roughly 115,000 Bitcoin right now. That's $115 billion. His company is currently a $6 billion company. So, right, if it appreciates, you can quickly see it becoming. He's gonna keep, I assume, based on past kind of past performance and what he's been doing, he's gonna keep acquiring Bitcoin. But if the price appreciates, Fidelity sent a presentation we talked about it the other day where it was $100 million per Bitcoin to clients. They sent that, right? So, like, there is some belief, obviously, that this can go much higher than it currently is, and we'll see. But I think that his concentrated bet has put him in a very, very, very good position if it does appreciate in value. And he'll be looked at as kind of one of the, this historically will be go down as one of the best trades in history from a corporate CEO.
There are a couple of things that people have done in the past, which I think folks look at and they're like, wow, that was like epic. One of them is Berkshire Hathaway going ahead, buying Geico and the insurance companies, getting the free float, being able to invest that capital very aggressively and very well for decades and decades, letting compounding work and eventually becoming one of the most valuable companies in the world, and Warren Buffett becoming one of the richest people in the world, right? I think that this is a Berkshire Hathaway-like trade that if it works, people will look back and be like, oh my God, it was so obvious what to do. And we didn't do it. There's the MicroStrategy stock right there. Again, closely following the Bitcoin price for the most part. You could see the peak there in kind of early March or so, and then eventually kind of coming back down to about $600.
Is this a way for people, like, do you think if you don't have exposure to Bitcoin, don't want directly to own it, like they should just go have MicroStrategy stock in a sense, right? Because it follows it so well.
Well, we've seen institutions that can't go out and publicly buy Bitcoin. They've used MicroStrategy stock as an option to go and opt into that market and get exposure to that asset. But yeah, I mean, I think like it's an interesting play because you still get kind of that infrastructure piece that MicroStrategy is a real company, right? They have real products, they have real revenue, they do all that kind of stuff also. They've obviously their stock has appreciated mostly because of the Bitcoin price over the past 400 days since he's been acquiring it. But yeah, they have a real product, they have real revenue, and they have all these things, but you get exposure to that asset class too. So if you're a company, whether you're a hedge fund, an institutional investor of some sort, and you legally can't, or your company does not allow you to go out and buy Bitcoin, the asset specifically, this offers another way of exposure to it. And I think that what we've seen is MicroStrategy, there's been a premium placed on their stock outside of the Bitcoin price. I don't have a chart necessarily that overlays it, but I've seen it in the past where like there is a certain premium that's applied to the stock because you have that additional demand from people coming in that don't just want access to Bitcoin. They also like the company, but they get the exposure to Bitcoin which they wanted anyway. So it's kind of an upside play on the business and the strategy moving forward if Bitcoin continues to appreciate in price.
The other piece of this that to me seems important is that Michael Saylor is not simply doing this with a small portion of the balance sheet. He's doing it with almost all of it. And the reason why I say that's important is one, there's a severity of conviction, but also two is as the stock becomes kind of more closely tied to Bitcoin itself, what you essentially are doing is you are presenting a example of a company that is now hyper Bitcoinization. Now, I have not talked to Michael about this at all. I hold no MicroStrategy stock intentionally because I tend to think that I would rather have my friendship with him rather than be a shareholder. But I gotta think that if you're this convicted around Bitcoin and you hold this much Bitcoin and you are a software company that is super into business intelligence, etc., you got to start playing in the Bitcoin space, whether it is you're doing mining, whether it is that you're building a wallet, whether it's you're doing some sort of on-chain metric, like something starts to creep into the business other than right now they've basically separated the business. They have what they call their software strategy or like their business strategy, and they have a treasury strategy. And treasury strategy obviously is buy Bitcoin. The business strategy is to continue to become an even bigger leader in the business analytics, business intelligence, and then be able to drive profit, take that profit, convert it into Bitcoin, etc. What's up, guys? Bang, bang. Thanks so much for watching the Best Business Show today. If we're going to be the best business show, we obviously need the best partner. That's why the exclusive sponsor of the Best Business Show is SoFi. They're an all-in-one platform that allows you to invest in all kinds of different assets, including stocks, ETFs, crypto, IPOs, and they even have an automated investing function, if that's your thing. So before we start getting after it again, make sure that you go download SoFi, you get an invest account, and when you make your first crypto trade, regardless of what you buy, they'll give you $10 in Bitcoin for free. It's that simple. Head on over to SoFi.com/pomp to get started today. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you come back and watch more of the Best Business Show tomorrow.